All right.
Maybe the court and do.
Fantastic. Well, good morning. Thank you so much for everybody coming in here for this first session on the brand evolution deck that I'm going to walk you through. Let me start off by saying, it's been quite a few months, and we've done a lot of homework. We've done a lot of fact finding, and some of the design considerations that we've put in place over the last couple months is just exploring the option of evolving the logo, updating, or completely changing and moving away from FEG altogether. Right, so this was the thought process that we started out into when we began. We've gathered substantial insights from the community, from outside exchanges, as well as tons of internal FEG groups as well. So it's been an exhaustive process trying to get to what we thought would be a good set of options, right? So today we're going to present 3 options that we considered along the way. And I do want to be really candid about the fact that there was strong consideration to change the name, and there was also some good reasons to not do it at all. So one of the options that I will present will be, it'll just be a look at kind of where we were. And this is important because as we went through this process, it was became very clear on a couple things. One, when we first started out, we thought, okay, it's very important to change the name for the potential stuff like listing on centralized exchanges and what have you. Once we kind of baked it down and really talked to these groups and frankly exhaustively talked to, 50 plus, and 50 is a smaller number, it really and beyond, yeah, it really became clear to us that the name and logo actually weren't any of the issue. There was maybe a very, very small percentage, 1-2% kind of thing that had any issue with it. And at the end of the day, it came down to the tokenomics were a bigger problem for us than the name. So when we think about where we were, it's important to understand that the number of options that we looked at was immense. We probably had a list of almost 140 names at one point on it. And I got to be very candid with the fact that I was in the camp of let's change everything. That's how I felt about it originally. And then once we uncovered certain things and did a lot of additional homework and research, I moved back towards a certain position. But it's not about that so much as understanding, how we did get here. Because when you think of almost any name that you can think of, it's been probably already turned into a cryptocurrency. And that became clear because one thing is it's not as simple as just coming up with a cool name, right? You can come up with a cool name all day long and think that's great. But you have to come up with something that has some kind of uniqueness, something you think you can build some equity around. And after we did what we would call like a brand audit across like a name that we liked, we'd come up with, all right, this has already been done once, twice, maybe even 3 times sometimes that name would have been already used by another token. So finding something as unique as FEG really quickly became something that, was going to be a challenge, right? And we have 2 really unique things about our current branding, right? First off, the word mark FEG itself it's undeniably unique. There is not another, one out there except for, maybe an imitator or 2 or somebody that adopted some variation of our name, again, because of, the way the crypto space works. But the other thing that came about was the uniqueness of the icon itself, right? We explored a lot of different options. And again, I'm going to take you through these 3. And I want to start out by saying that all 3 of the options do have the name FEG in it. It really becomes more about the branding, the icon, and then what changes, right? So when we think about where we were, right, in the current thing, right? The option one was legit. Like, should we just keep everything, right? Because again, after we uncovered certain things and said, okay, the name, all these things really aren't a problem. Did the homework, looked at the list. There was some strong consideration, honestly, just to keep the name. And we know we heard the community and all that stuff. But again, the uniqueness of it, it really is our most recognizable piece of equity, the gorilla. And then when you think about the other challenges like changing the URLs, changing all the social channels, all those things, the education needed to communicate to the community that it's changed are all things, right? So one of the drawbacks to it was the gorilla head, right? Does carry a meme feel, and it may limit us in certain investor types for kind of new people coming into the project. And we're very familiar with where we were. So in option one, it was considered just keep everything as is. We're familiar with the icons, with the word mark, how we showed up on screen, different emblems that we used as other asset types, and then colors, how we show up. These are some example ads that I'll have across all three options, right? An example of maybe a potential Twitter ad showing the new aggregator. How we show up kind of on Twitter, and then finally Instagram, right? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on option one because we're familiar with that brand. But again, it was strong consideration to keep everything because of, again, that equity had been built so strongly, and trying to come up with something unique was almost impossible. So then when you think about option two, you start to talk about, okay, well, what if we evolve the logo, right? What's it look like to simplify it? Maybe give it a little bit of a twist, right? So when you think about this simplified logo here in option two, and this ecosystem, right? It's designed to appeal to a wider audience. So it's got a little bit more of again, reduced in its kind of shape language and the way it shows up. We're leaning into some colors here in option two. It's this kind of fuchsia, which I would call the color of the glasses on the current logo, into this blue, right? And that blue symbolizes the evolution of the FEG token and rocks together, because we really had created a certain look and feel when it came to SmartDeFi. And as FEG becomes a SmartDeFi token and ultimately merges with rocks into this more powerful token, it was a good reason to kind of lean into that color palette, right? So it does preserve the uniqueness of the name. So again, the word mark still is listed as FEG, but it is in a simplified way. One thing that I will get into here, we had a lot of different tools in our ecosystem and in our product lineup, right? All had their own look, all had their own feel. Obviously, FEG itself as the governance token. SmartDeFi had its own look and feel. Graphene, and then all the other products, that we were working with all had their own, look and feel. So ultimately, this has, while those were nice, they lack consistency. They lack this cohesion that you really want when you think about companies and products that do this very well and show up really well on screen like this. It is companies like Google's, like Adobe, like all these things where you look at their tool set and they're gonna have a shared shape language. They're gonna have a shared color palette feeling. We lack that dramatically with FEG. It was, again, while everything in its own right was nice, it was hard to sometimes marry this stuff together in designs, in web, on certain things. We had a ton of different URLs, right? So we feel like one thing that we had to start to think about was how can we start to bring this cohesion together, and unify things, again, across a shared shape language is the word that we'll use, and color palette. Because, again, previously it was challenging, even designing that booth for Dubai. It was you never really wanted to lock up things together. It was really kind of make this its own kind of asset in this item, and then just kind of, put them together in this booth, right? So it became hard to really make some of that stuff look good and feel consistent, right? And that is a big important part of it, right? So to have that kind of professional edge, it's important. So as we get into option 2 and 3, keep those things in mind, because it was a big reason why we went the way we went here in some of these options. So when we think about option 2 and the simplified gorilla, right, it kind of shows up on screen like this, right? Nothing shocking here. And we explored a ton of different ways that the gorilla could be. We had a lot of people even submit logos, and there was some good stuff, but then you could check things across, stock sites. And again, doing an audit was always important, right? You want to try to find the uniqueness. And it was just, ultimately, we ended up coming back to the gorilla itself because, again, it does have that uniqueness that we couldn't really find in some of the other simpler graphics, or they felt oversimplified and even a little bit generic. So when we think about this kind of simplified version of the logo, we have the fuchsia and the glasses, and we have some of the deeper blues in the SmartDeFi. We can see here again, how it might look. We've added in this little icon just to represent the fact that it is a SmartDeFi token. So SD is kind of locked up in here. And then we can kind of see how this might start to show up on screen when you lock up the icon and the word mark together, right? We explored that across different color palettes because it's important that you test and kick the tires on a lot of different things when you're doing design and layout. The icon has to show up and be considered on dark backgrounds, light backgrounds, and even at scale, right? Getting it small, and how does it look as a smaller icon even on your phone? So then when we lose the underlying shape layer underneath it, it starts to get even more simpler, right? Kind of looking how that comes together. And then ultimately, like, how does it look across just as a simple 2-color, right? Because one thing that was challenging on the other current gorilla is it's got 4 colors in it. It's got a little bit of the white, the yellow, the red, the black. And these colors don't always want to necessarily marry well with other items, So other colors, the blues of SmartDeFi, some of the other stuff, that we had in our tool and ecosystem, right? So thinking about the colors on the way it might look on this, and then ultimately getting into seeing how that might show up. Again, it was important for us to really try to explore how these looked across different design and layouts, so that you could really get a sense of it and see how it felt in the wild. And this is an example ad, again, similar to what we saw before, but with this logo and icon. We could see here again how we start to lean into those colors. Again, we kind of got these wide gradient bands and then kind of a simpler gorilla. And
just to interrupt, sorry. I don't know. Can everyone else see what you're describing? Because I can't see anything.
You can't see my
screen. Yeah.
Well, there's people in Maine commenting how clean it looks and how good it looks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm assuming it's local to you.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yep.
Oh, please, yeah. If you can't see the screen, that is certainly an issue.
I'll just leave that. So anyone who can't see the screen, probably leave and come back, and I'll see whether that works.
Yeah. Okay. So again, kind of seeing how it comes to life on Instagram, right? So as we kind of wrap up option 2, right?
So that works. So anyone who can't see it, just leave and come back in.
Sorry. Yes, it is important to see my screen here on this. So again, using little color cues and trying to bring some cohesion across certain things, again, like our social channels. All right. So then when we go down further into option 3, I think this is where things start to get exciting in my mind, right? You're kind of thirsty for that cohesion, that shared feeling across the ecosystem. So when we get into option 3, right, this is designed to be a little bit more elegant, a little bit more of a professional icon to support the FEG logo and ecosystem. Again, kind of appealing to that wider audience. We are using and leaning into kind of the fuchsia and the blues in this as well. We do have a secondary option on this, like an option 3 alt that I'll share after this. It's just still in the process, right? When we did start to do some of the exercise and naming conventions, we thought about FSD and FTW as other names as well. I do want to throw that out here because when we thought about something that was potentially usable across several different ones, this is one that came up. So this does preserve the uniqueness of the name FEG, but in a simplified way. And again, I think the important part here is this design and shape language kind of translates seamlessly across the ecosystem. The good thing about, again, kind of keeping the name the same, but changing the icon, which is what we have here in option 3, is the URLs, social channels and handles, they don't need to change as well, right? So you got flexibility for future development and additional products to roll out. That's also important because, again, as we kept building and adding things onto the FEG ecosystem, honestly, we just started getting more and more fragmented. Everything looked different. Nothing felt like it was necessarily from the same hand. While we tried to be consistent around each particular product and brand, it was hard to do anything, again, that ever felt cohesive, right? The gorilla head is gone in this one. So like as a drawback, right, we try to think about benefits and drawbacks of each one. That is a piece of equity that goes away on this. But what I do want to say is one thing and way we think about the gorilla, right? Because it's, if you're still wearing that badge, that name, like it is like considered almost like our spirit animal of the project itself. So when we think about it, the gorilla could even still be a legacy icon that could show up on merch. You're not going to see it at the top of the header on the website. You wouldn't see it in, on the user interfaces of the tools, right, on social. But it would be something that could still be embraced in a basic way, really in almost any aspect. But again, moving to a more professional icon, seemed to be, again, a clear path that made sense for unification and for appealing to wider audiences. But again, keeping the distinction of the name. So as we got to that point, right, we came up with this brand mark here. So this is that fuchsia into the blue, just a very simple shaped F. We have the SD locked up inside here. And then we've kept FEG very similar to the way it was. I mean, it's going to be probably indistinguishable from most. It is in a different font, but it has slightly changed just a little bit. Again, kind of using that deeper blue. And then one thing we think about, right, is, again, how does that show up across potentially other color palettes and other looks and feels? So we play that out, right, and we see how it might look on white, how it might look on kind of some of these lighter palette. And then, how might it look if it's just a different set of gradients across it, right? So that's for FEG, for the name, right? But then when we think about our tool set, it's important that, again, the cohesion I've been talking about is something that we get. So when I get into these next icon items, you're going to see, again, where that benefit really starts to show itself. So aggregator, FTW, SmartDeFi, all part of the ecosystem. And when we think of this F and the way that it moves, it already has like a really nice shape that feels, feels kind of forward thinking or feels like it's in motion, right? We borrow from that shape language, and then we start to come up with items like this, right? For the aggregator, for instance. Again, that same kind of shape language, the same kind of color palette, very, very similar look and feel, right? You could feel this already kind of part of a system. How does that look when it kind of comes to life, right? So kind of leaning into this lighter blue. And then how does it look on solids, right? We can kind of see it, in a 2-color format. and then something else. Because while these colors are all work in progress, and we wouldn't say any of this stuff is final on this option or option 2 even, these are places that we've been landing on, right? So we did want to think about the logo in the context of 2 colors, and then something, again, with a little bit more vibrancy and, a touch of, color as well. So for the aggregator, right, that same kind of shape language. Then we think about FTW, right, from the wallet, right? So again, kind of borrowing that same shape, right? And this is consistent across all of these, right? So that same fuchsia, and then we see how that might look, again, across a 2 color, really leaning into these kind of poppy colors. And then ultimately, how that translates to SmartDeFi, right? So we can see, again, that same thing, same shape, same gradient. And then kind of a similar exploration on this one as well, right? So we can kind of see, while they all had a little bit different of a base color, the blue here, the pink here, purple here. None of this is set in stone, but again, just ways of thinking about it and looking at it. Colors that we liked, font type that we had been going with on this one, right? Kind of in this one field palette. How, disregard this. Oh, I thought I switched this out. FEG aggregator would be this. This was an early exploration. But again, kind of seeing how this might show up on a potential Twitter ad, right? Finding the best price, about to get easy. We got the kind of cohesion of even the color and how it even feels with the interface. And we'd already been skewing this way a little bit. If you've seen like similar ads, some of this color palette stuff was kind of where we had been leaning a little bit from the websites, from the UI exploration, all those items as well. So, and we see how that might show up on Twitter. Again, we have our F with the SD kind of signifying, again, SmartDeFi. And again, on social, how that might look on an Instagram feed, right? Again, utilizing these colors and bringing another level of kind of cohesion to the project, right? And then we explored this option a little further, right? When we thought about option 3 and some alternative colors, again, still using kind of some of the blues and fuchsias, but just with a little bit darker tone. Again, some of this exploration is still in the works. We see how it might show up on a darker palette. Again, the lighter, the darker. And then, lighter background, darker background, all things to consider. Again, how the icon looks when it's locked up with just the name, how it stands alone. And then on this one, we brought in some greens just to see what it would feel like to shift everything a little bit more while using the same shape language, having each tool have more of a uniqueness to its color palette. So the aggregator in this one example went with a green feel to it, right? This is kind of green to lime, still leaning into some gradients. It on the darker way. And again, I really love the movement of the shape language. It's got a great feeling to it. How this looks, again, across light and dark applications. Same thing. SmartDeFi, again, kind of gradient, but less of a shift in the gradient, right? So instead of this kind of wild jump from fuchsia to blue, it's more of a similar hue shifting in the gradient. On dark and light, same thing. Actually, I really enjoy these, again, these icons. I think they have a really nice feel to them. A nice natural kind of motion to it. FTW, again, just a little bit of a shift in the hue on the gradient. On white. And then seeing them kind of locked up together here, right? So this is Option 3, as we continue to see it, again, it's got again the approachability that I think you just you struggle with the current icon. And again, while this allows us to preserve the uniqueness of the name and some of the core items in our the URLs we have and the social channels we own, we do get to shift to potentially become more attractive to other outside investors. And I think that was a big part of why it made sense. It strikes a really nice balance right in the middle, and I think it's a fantastic option. Like I said, option 2 is strong as well. And then here we go. We can kind of see them again one more time together, understanding how they kind of work as a system. And I think they're quite nice on white too. Nice and bright, nice and clean, nice and approachable. And then we had really been playing around with the color, so we explored a lot. Again, all this stuff, why we'd consider it probably like 95% there on some of this design work. Everything would still be kind of tweaked and dialed in, at the last second. Nothing major as far as a radical change from anything, but like landing on what would look right. That's for any of these options that we've talked about today. So again, there was a lot of exploration done around some other icons and other names, and I had quite a few that I really was excited about, and then I'd look them up and I'd do an audit on them, and sure enough, they'd been done and again, in some cases done 3 or 4 times. So those are the options that we've landed on. Again, thinking about it and kind of quickly jumping back through. So it was really keep anything the same, right? Was a consideration in option 1. Change to the simplified gorilla, right? Option 2. And then option 3 is moving towards, a simpler shape, away from the gorilla, preserving FEG as a name, and then potentially seeing that develop into an ecosystem together. So those are the items that we've considered and prepared. I'd love to give anybody the opportunity to ask any questions, to see, just see what's the feeling on the work that we've shared here today. And I'll also, before we do, I'll give Frankie an opportunity to say anything. I've given this several times, so I may or may not have missed some points, but I wanted to do that before we open the mic.
No, absolutely on point. Great presentation, and it's even evolved since we kind of last looked at it, which is good to see more of the kind of palette and the options behind it. I suppose one thing I did want to touch on was, which you did mention, was just the name a bit more. Some of the stuff to back up why we're remaining with the name as it is what appear to be simple things but have massive impacts. That, for example, changing our Twitter handle would lose our verified status and stuff like that. So there's a lot that, while we can change the brand ourselves and build upon it, and even the name, the implications to changing the name elsewhere are fairly massive. So it's reasons like that we've kept the name as it is. But yeah, no, the pack looks good. And as DewBo said, spoke to lots and lots of sexes around what we were thinking about doing, and kind of asked them some direct questions about what do you think of the name, what do you think of the logo, what's the kind of biggest blocker to potentially listing is, and all those kind of things. The thing it really came down to was the tokenomics, DeFi and things like that. So I think while it's obviously a community opinion and stuff like that, and you're going to get the opportunity to vote, we'll maybe touch on that in a second, actually do when we're thinking about the votes and stuff. I have only just thought of it because we spoke about it yesterday. But the idea of bringing the stuff into line, like a suite of products, like DewBo mentioned, Adobe and all that, Microsoft Office, these basic things that all have the one overarching umbrella to the individual products, I think is a good thing. And while we've always had absolutely fantastic material for the individual products, it's maximum effort every time that happens, which is why it sometimes takes a while to get this stuff out. You're designing stuff for SmartDeFi individually, you're designing stuff for graphene individually, where you can't just move through a color palette and adopt an entire brand pack that's already sitting there prepared. So it's good. Again, very good playback there, DewBo. I've seen it a few times. I'm just as excited as I was when I seen it the first time. What we are likely to do for the purpose of people on this, we'll mention in the later VCs as well, and there'll be a communication later today on it, or tomorrow morning when the last one concludes, is we're likely to give you over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to think about these options, and you'll see the brand pack. You'll have the opportunity to put it back on YouTube and things like that. We will likely move to a vote on Tuesday of next week. Now, it's not entirely set in stone, but it's heavily weighted towards getting out on Tuesday and concluding it either the Thursday evening or Friday during the day, so we can move into the new weekend with an agreed upon approach. But yeah, no, that's great. Lots of positive feedback in the main chat from what I'm seeing.
One last thing I want to mention too was before we conclude on this, was the opportunity this gives us. Okay, because while this is great and all this homework, some of the things we had when it came to again, the bringing in new people and the confusion that sometimes we could get with having all these different websites, right? Everything kind of separate, right? Just sheerly the fact that you have to keep all these things updated, right? With this new approach, you're able to even really think about the website in a completely different way and bring it really almost under one roof together, all the products, instead of everything linking out and really just kind of being confusing for investors. This gives us the opportunity to really simplify that. One, it helps us at scale a lot better. Two, it's gonna have a much more professional look if you think about like an option 3, or even option 2 being simplified. You get again, you get some of these benefits that are just going to be massive. You're bringing again, just some real nice simplification to properties like that is going to make a huge difference. So it's not just about it showing up on Twitter or how's it look on the on our phones and like in any of the apps. It's about even the look and the feel across everything. I mean, we had, again, all the websites. Here we have an opportunity to really bring everything under one roof in a nice, clean, simple way. And it's not about doing anything other than really taking advantage of an opportunity that's been presented to us, So I hope anybody, with any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this today. And, I did want to say that last point before I move on, or we open it up to any questions, or how do you want to proceed, Brent?
Let's give it a couple of minutes for questions. Raise your hand if you can't just talk, and one of the mods, we'll try and get it. But yeah, let's get some questions going. Tag me in the main chat or drop a question in there just now if you have them. But let's do this for the next few minutes, and then we'll let DewBo go on and prepare yourself for the next 3 and everything else he's doing.
Hey, DewBo, that was good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Oh,
good
thank
stuff.
you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
How are you today?
I know the hard work. Most of us can be seeing this and think it's simple, but I can see the hard work. But I'm a little bit concerned. Maybe I missed out something. Was it a new vote to keep the name FEG, or it was just like an understanding of the future and what it might do, like how it's gonna harm the project by you guys? Or I don't know, like, was it because I haven't been catching up with so much. I don't know if there was a new vote to keep the name FEG.
What will happen is next week there will be a vote from Tuesday of next week to choose one of these brand options that have been presented today. In the previous, I think the last town hall, potentially mentioned by RTR and some communications since then, we've opted not to change the name. I don't know if you heard some of the implications that I had mentioned earlier, but you'd have to get re-verified in Twitter and all these kind of things. And to be honest, the name wasn't a defining factor in why sexes weren't listed. So it's not something that we ultimately felt that we completely needed to change. But to get rid of the meme aspect and some of the things DewBo talked about, which is it's recorded anyway, so you'll get it on YouTube shortly. But the vote next week will be on the branding options, and that's where we'll.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, there was a strong consideration to change it. Like I said, we looked at a ton of different options, and ultimately, when it came down to it, it was it was to keep that equity that had been built up in the name, but shift away from the gorilla icon itself as kind of what could be a meme option. So the options did skew that way when it came to that. Again, we got a lot of time, a lot of sweat in that name, and it is distinct. So again, we played out. Like I said, it went from 140 names down to probably 20, down to a really small list of maybe 6. And ultimately, names that we considered aside from FEG were simple things like FSD, which would still have FEG in it a little bit, like FEG SmartDeFi. We considered, could you utilize FTW in a way? We considered, adopting graphene as a name and as a product set. Because while we had, again, a nice list of other names, we were like, oh, that's cool. This name or that name. Again, you'd look it up, you'd do a search, you'd be like, oh, there's been 3 of those and 2 of them have rugged and this and that. Like, you're like, okay, so it was an exhaustive exercise to be sure, and it started instantly. Like, we started this process like within 24 hours, in May on getting after it, and played it out across the group, and, went through these naming exercises and the whole thing. Like I said, I was hot on, like, let's change it. And then the more we got information and the more things came out, it really became clear, 1, that we didn't have to change the name, and 2, that we're not going to find a stronger piece of equity than what we have, right? But we need to consider, right, changing the icon and the logo, and this is where we kind of arrived. So
okay, thanks so much.
Nice.
For the discussion. I appreciate it.
B-Tong, thanks for the question, mate. DH, you're up.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay.
Nice to hear you again.
Thanks, Frankie. Yeah, really good work, guys. Really impressive stuff. And DewBo, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for all your videos. I must say that when you send a video out, whatever I'm doing, I stop and watch it. So really enjoy all the
thanks
you put into it.
I appreciate it.
When I first saw the second one, I thought this looks really good compared to the first one. And my initial reaction when I saw the third was that I didn't really understand it, and I didn't want to. I was sort of thought 2 was better. After about 5 minutes, as your presentation went on, I thought, wow, this actually looks quite good. It looks, to coin a phrase, blue chip, which is really what we're trying to do if we're creating a sort of respectable DeFi platform. And I think option 3 looks great. There's another point I just want to make, and that is that just having the gorilla there, we've always supported PASA, and I've always felt that is a little bit restrictive. Good a charity as it is, I've always felt that maybe there may be something to gain by support if we're going to continue down the sort of charitable donation route in supporting other endangered animals as well as the platform grows. I thought maybe it might be a good idea to support, say, a panda sanctuary in one country in China. It might be good PR or something else somewhere else. So just, maybe this is an opportunity as well, just to sort of broaden our sort of altruistic side of the platform and just expand outside Gorilla as well, which might bring even greater appeal to other people. So those were the 2 points I really just wanted to make.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, I agree. You definitely, again, I think you have more flexibility overall as a whole, right? And the word blue chip's a great word to use. I do think it is that. Again, you can always think of FEG as a spirit animal, and for those that, I love the gorilla, I love the icon, from a uniqueness perspective, but ultimately, this opportunity is perfect for us to evolve the brand right now. Yeah, especially with the new tool sets coming online and all these things. Again, I used the words yesterday, like in a tweet about like things just kind of converging together, and we're really going to have a nice, a great looking suite of tools, and they're going to feel cohesive and beautiful together. If you go, with an option 3 direction, again, knowing that, there's a vote. But thank you for that comment. Those are good, insightful.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Nice to hear from you. Okay. Unless. Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to say, to be clear, this is absolutely a huge group effort amongst the design team and even really marketing and admin and the groups together. So while I get to be the guy to present and walk you through this, I would be remiss if I didn't stop and just, say that it was a massive collection of people that, allowed us to arrive at this. So.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just saying for the SD letters on the main logo, do you plan to let it like that, or it was just for test?
You mean the small S next to the
small
F?
SD. Yes, on the F.
It's one probably for DewBo, but I think that will remain because FEG will ultimately be a FEG SmartDeFi token.
Yes, I think I think the logo for SD. SD need own logo, and for the main, I think it's not useful. But it's just my opinion.
Right, because
it's not useful.
Wait 1 second. I see what he's talking about, because if we are like remember the SD logo was used, the look was used by the other projects for their own marketing efforts. So we do need to have a separate additional SD logo. Well, right, yes. We do have it. Okay.
Look, we do have one. Good feedback. So the small SD next to the F.
Yes,
is
exactly.
Probably the feedback there, DewBo, and whether it adds something or not. I think the aim was because FEG as the governance token was going to be SmartDeFi, or it is going to be SmartDeFi. But I think there's that some options there without anyway, DewBo. So
yeah, just my review. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No. Feedback. If that's the only thing you're coming up with as a negative, we're absolutely delighted. Right. Okay. Let's leave it there. Thanks so much for the questions, everybody. DewBo, amazing presentation. It's been great. The feedback and the chat is also positive. People are hyped. Good to have over 70 people on here, and hopefully have the same for the rest of the day. Again, just housekeeping, we're going to be putting this on YouTube as a recorded session. Potentially not this one, although it's that good. We'll probably use this one anyway. And some good questions. So yeah, just keep your eye on the pinned messages and the socials, and we'll keep you updated as to progress. But exciting times and great work, DewBo and the team. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and I'll stick around in here. Like I said, if anybody wants to discuss anything, and then we'll conclude kind of the recording session here. But we can, certainly keep the conversation going. And, I'll have another walkthrough later today for anybody that missed it as well, several more times.